consistent with the economy transitioning from the rebound phase of recovery to steadier, sustainable expansion. Mr. Speaker, while the economy has demonstrated resilience, the challenges emerging require our attention. The tariff escalations witnessed through 2025 are gradually influencing prices and business decisions across major economies. For Bermuda, these cannot be distant concerns, Mr. Speaker, because our economy is closely connected to global markets, and these developments have real implications for us here at home. Navigating this period will require discipline. Bermuda must prioritize fiscal prudence, advance economic diversification, and ensure that our regulatory frameworks, which attract so many companies to Bermuda, remain competitive. The global environment is shifting rapidly, and our policy responses, Mr. Speaker, must be strategic. Through disciplined fiscal management, the government can mitigate external shocks and position Bermuda to emerge from this period of uncertainty on an even more solid footing than we are today. Mr. Speaker, I'll now move on to the economic development strategy. Mr. Speaker, Bermuda's economic development strategy was endorsed by this Honorable House several years ago. And today, the sustained implementation of that strategy is evident both in the data and the lived experience of our economy. Unemployment is at historic lows, labor demand remains strong across multiple sectors, and business activity has expanded. Entrepreneurship remains a central pillar of this strategy, and through expanded access to capital, structured advisory support, and coordinated programs delivered through the Bermuda Economic Development Corporation and its partners, the government is strengthening the pipeline of Bermudian-owned enterprises with hundreds of entrepreneurs receiving direct support. Mr. Speaker, youth employment has also been a priority. In the past year alone, hundreds of young Bermudians have been supported through structured training, apprenticeships, and internships, and direct job placement initiatives. These placements span construction, hospitality, professional services, and emerging sectors. And as you can see, Mr. Speaker, we've seen a significant drop in youth unemployment as well. Diversification continues to strengthen the base of the economy. While international business remains a core pillar, growth is visible in residential development, construction activities, small business formation, and sector expansion beyond traditional areas. Planning approvals and private sector investment levels demonstrates continued business confidence. Mr. Speaker, growth brings pressure. Labor shortages, housing demand, infrastructure strain. But these pressures are signs of expansion. They confirm that the strategy is working. That is why the housing investments outlined in this budget are directly connected to economic policy. When you grow, you must build capacity. When you attract investment, you must ensure the infrastructure and workforce are ready. Mr. Speaker, economic growth does not sustain itself. It requires steady management and policies that are sound. One of the clearest signs that our economic policies are working is what we see in the labor market with unemployment at record lows. But, Mr. Speaker, we also have to be honest about what comes with success. A growing economy creates more demand for jobs, and one constraint on our continued growth is lack of available labor. If we are to keep this economic momentum going, Bermuda must take a balanced approach to the labor market, one that protects Bermudian workers while ensuring that businesses can access the talent needed to grow and invest. To address this, the Ministry of Economy and Labor will further modernize our work permit processes by reviewing and making adjustments to closed and restricted job categories to assist with closing the gap between the supply and demand for labor. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure that many are anxious to hear this government's plans for the upcoming fiscal year, but I must first update this Honorable House, the people of Bermuda, on the audited financial results of the prior year. The audited financial statements for fiscal year 2024-25, which ended on the 31st of March 2025, were tabled in this House earlier today. I am pleased to report that these accounts receive an unqualified audit opinion from the Auditor General, removing the previous qualification regarding provisions for asbestos abatement. The removal of that qualification, which arose due to a change in accounting standards, is welcome news, and I want to take this opportunity to commend the teams at the Ministry of Public Works and Environment and the Accountant General's Office for their work in getting the qualification removed. Mr. Speaker, total revenue for fiscal year 2024-25 reached $1.27 billion. This was $40 million, or 3.3% higher than the original estimate of $1.23 billion. Payroll tax concessions were the primary driver of this growth, totaling $612.6 million. This represents a $42.6 million, or 7.5% increase over the original estimate of $570 million. This performance was underpinned by continued job growth and rising salaries. Customs duty receipts were recorded at $225 million, which was $9 million, or 3.8% below the estimates of $234 million. However, Mr. Speaker, this drop was the deliberate consequence of the government's decision to implement a 60% reduction in taxes on fuel imported by Belco to provide direct relief to residents and businesses on their energy bills. All of the receipts totaled $432.4 million, performing broadly in line with expectations. Moving to expenditure for that year, Mr. Speaker, the government maintained control over its spending while addressing critical social needs and delivering promised pay increases for public officers. Current account expenditure for the year totaled $1.006 billion. While this was $14 million, or 1.4% above the initial estimate of $992 million, it reflects our decision to allocate additional funds towards social spending and provide essential support for the Bermuda Hospitals Board during the year. Capital expenditure totaled $101.7 million, which was $10.6 million below the original estimate of $112.3 million. Despite being slightly under the budget amount, this represented the highest level of capital investment in the island's infrastructure since 2010-2011. Debt service and guarantee management were $129 million, which is approximately $1 million above the original estimate. It is important to note, Mr. Speaker, that this was $2 million less than the prior year, which was a direct result of this government's $50 million debt repayment made in 2023. Mr. Speaker, while the government originally projected a modest surplus of $210,000, I'm proud to confirm to this Honorable House, the people of Bermuda, that Bermuda achieved a consolidated fund modified cash surplus of $29 million. This surplus, Mr. Speaker, the first achieved in 21 years, was delivered before a single dollar of corporate income tax was collected. It is proof that this government has successfully managed the island's finances while simultaneously reducing the tax burden on workers to the lowest level in history. When reviewing the results from fiscal year 2024-25, the Independent Fiscal Responsibility Panel said, Mr. Speaker, and I quote, "Bermuda's fiscal position is now stronger than any time in 2 decades," end quote. On this, Mr. Speaker, the government agrees, and now it is our job to build on this solid foundation. Mr. Speaker, before turning to the estimates of revenue expenditure for the coming fiscal year, I want to update this Honorable House on the government's financial performance for the current year, fiscal year 2025-26, which will end on the 31st of March, 2026. The most recent revised forecasts confirm that the fiscal and economic strategy that this government has executed is delivering sound public finances while continuing to deliver on the commitments that we made to the people of this country. Mr. Speaker, the latest revised forecasts project total revenue for fiscal year 25-26 to be $1.554 billion. This represents an increase of $123 million, or 8.6% over our original budget estimate of $1.431 billion. The most significant contributor to this increase is actual receipts from the corporate income tax. Our revised provision for receipts in fiscal year 2025-26 is now $279 million, and that amount was transferred to the consolidated fund pursuant to the Corporate Income Tax Act and the Corporate Income Tax Refund Regulations, representing an increase of $92 million, or 48.8% over our original estimate of $187.5 million, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, other revenue sources remain resilient. Excluding corporate income tax, revised revenue estimates have reached $1.275 billion, exceeding the original estimate by $32 million, or 2.6%. Mr. Speaker, current accounts expenditure for the year, excluding debt service, is now projected at $1.135 billion, an increase of $25 million from the original estimate of $1.1 billion. This increase is largely driven by our commitment to invest in healthcare delivery. The government increased the supplementary allocation to $86.25 million, which is $13 million higher than the original $56.25 million. This additional $30 million expenditure was necessary to provide support to the Bermuda Hospitals Board in meeting their obligations to their employees following wage negotiations. Despite these targeted investments, Mr. Speaker, the baseline current account expenditure for ministry budgets has been maintained with the same discipline that was recognized by the Fiscal Responsibility Panel. Baseline current account expenditure is projected to come in at $1.48 billion, a decrease of $5 million, or 0.5% from the original estimate of $1.54 billion, meaning that outside of extraordinary contributions to the Bermuda Hospitals Board and the BHB, all other expenses have been managed below budget. Moving to capital expenditure, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, for the current year, capital investment was originally budgeted at $149.8 million. The revised estimate is now $138.1 million, $11 million below the original estimate. But, Mr. Speaker, allow me to put that into context. At $138.8 million, this year's capital spend is $36.4 million higher than the year before, and this means that the government is still investing and doing more. And we have seen progress that have been made on roads, affordable housing, public transport, modern equipment for staff, and better facilities for Bermudians. Mr. Speaker, debt service and guarantee management costs for the year remain steady at $127.5 million. In line with our original projections, Bermuda's net debt remains on a downward trajectory as the government continues to build our reserves for future repayments. It is also important to note that Bermuda's debt interest revenue ratio is now below 10%. This was a major milestone published in the first Fiscal Responsibility Panel report, and the government has now achieved this goal. Mr. Speaker, it is with pride that I share the projected consolidated fund modified cash surplus for the fiscal year ending March 2026 is now estimated at $153.1 million. This represents a significant increase over the original estimate of $43.3 billion. While this result has been supported by the windfall in corporate income tax receipts, it also reflects our continued focus on maintaining a stable financial position. The government has managed its spending to ensure that it capitalizes on these increased revenues to strengthen the island's finances. In a demonstration of our fiscal discipline, Mr. Speaker, the $110 million achieved over the original estimate will be set aside and specifically used to repay debt due in 2027. Setting the stage for the next budget. Mr. Speaker, they're getting excited over there. You can wait. It's a long statement. Strap in. Mr. Speaker, as we present the estimates for fiscal year 2026-27, it is necessary to pause and reflect on the journey this government has taken over the last 9 years. Since 2017, Mr. Speaker, our mandate has been clear: to put Bermuda on a path of sustainable growth and social equity. This government has stayed the course through global crises and domestic challenges, always with the aim of ensuring that we are masters of our own house. This budget is a defining moment. It is the first budget fully shaped by the successful implementation of the corporate income tax. While some may see this as a reason to permanently expand the size and scope of government services, this government also sees it as an opportunity for debt repayment and strategic investment in the future. Mr. Speaker, so talking about the basis, let's speak about the Tax Reform Commission. I must express my sincere gratitude to the members of the Tax Reform Commission for their comprehensive report published last August. The Commission engaged a cross-section of our community, meeting with over 500 individuals and more than 30 stakeholder groups. Mr. Speaker, the Commission's report is clear in its intent. It sets out a pathway to modernize Bermuda's tax system in the context of corporate income tax with a focus on reducing the cost of living and the cost of doing business, supporting job creation and growth, improving equity, and maintaining healthy public finances. The government congratulates the Commission for producing a report that is both practical and ambitious, accepts the recommendations put forward, recognizing that the sequencing and detailed design of implementation may be guided by prevailing fiscal and economic conditions. This budget reflects the direction and discipline of that work. This government is advancing the Commission's core themes of fairness and debt relief, ensuring that the transition to corporate income tax delivers tangible benefit to Bermudian workers and local business. The Commission's waterfall model has been a great tool in guiding priorities and sequencing decisions so that tax relief, investment, and reform are delivered in a way that is responsible, transparent, and focused, of course, Mr. Speaker, on real outcomes. Mr. Speaker, the Commission has completed its mandate, and the government will now carry the work forward. The Tax Reform Commission report will remain as a reference point as the government continues to modernize Bermuda's tax system. The report also points us toward the future. It recommends that Bermuda should examine, in a careful and measured way, the merits of a low-rate, broad-based income tax system designed to maintain Bermuda's competitiveness while making our tax system more progressive and more transparent. To support that work, the Ministry of Finance will advance the Commission's recommendation for enhanced data collection on personal and business income so that any future decisions are informed by evidence. Now, Mr. Speaker, to the Fiscal Responsibility Panel. Mr. Speaker, the Fiscal Responsibility Panel's 2025 annual assessment provides an important, independent review of Bermuda's progress. The panel noted that our economy remains strong, driven by the performance of international business and an unemployment rate that has fallen to historic lows. The panel recognized the milestone achieved the 2024-25 fiscal year, the first surplus in consolidated fund in more than 2 decades. The panel commended the government for the smooth implementation of the Corporate Income Tax Agency, noting that the systems and staffing were established efficiently and initial payments were received without incident. The panel's conclusion was clear. Bermuda's fiscal position is stronger today than it has been in 20 years. Mr. Speaker, the panel also made the point that strong years must be used wisely. They recommended clear fiscal guardrails set in law to protect transparency, support debt reduction, and strengthen macroeconomic stability. The government has listened, and it agrees. That is why this budget puts those guardrails in place, so we lock in the progress that has been made and protect Bermuda's finances against whatever may come next. Mr. Speaker, to ensure that the unique opportunity presented by the corporate income tax is not lost on the short-term pressures of the day, and in view of the recommendation of both the Tax Reform Commission and the Fiscal Responsibility Panel, this government recognized the need to institutionalize a stronger framework of fiscal discipline. This new framework is built on 2 rules aligned with those recommendations. First, a rule for disciplined annual operations. In plain terms, our day-to-day budget must remain in balance or surplus, excluding net corporate income tax revenues, capital spending, and interest costs. This rule ensures that the ongoing cost of running government is sustainable and not dependent on corporate income tax revenue or borrowing. Second, a rule for the responsible use of corporate income tax revenues. Over a rolling 3-year period, at least 70% of net corporate income tax revenues will be directed to paying debt interest, reducing net debt, or building net financial assets. This rule ensures that a substantial majority of these new revenues are used to strengthen the country's balance sheet and improve resilience for the future. Mr. Speaker, what matters most is not only that these rules exist, but that the government lives within them. The medium-term expenditure framework presented in this budget meets these fiscal rules, both in the operational balance rule and the corporate income tax allocation rule. Mr. Speaker, one of the most important shifts for Bermuda is now that the government has the ability to save. Now, because of stronger revenues and disciplined spending control, we can reduce debt, build financial reserves, and begin to manage national assets in a more deliberate way. That approach requires the use of dedicated funds. First, a stabilization fund will provide a financial cushion during periods of economic stress, with contributions made during stronger years and withdrawals used to smooth the impact of downturns. The Tax Reform Commission recommended an annual contribution of $100 million to this fund, and that contribution will commence in fiscal year 2027-28. Second, the sinking fund will be continued to use to manage debt, reduce refinancing risk, and meet sovereign liabilities in an orderly way. The Tax Reform Commission recommended an annual contribution of $200 million to this fund, and that contribution will start in fiscal year 2027-28. And third, a sovereign wealth fund will be established to generate long-term returns and build national wealth over time. Mr. Speaker, the focus in the short to medium term will be on the first two funds, and our medium-term financial plan includes contributions to both. At the same time, the government will legislate for the governance arrangements and guardrails needed to manage all of these funds aligned with global standards. Mr. Speaker, the successful implementation of the corporate income tax marks a major change in Bermuda's fiscal position. As I've outlined in our current year performance, corporate income tax transfers to the consolidated fund for the current fiscal year came in well above our estimates, reaching $279 million. That is a strong result and reflects the success of international business and the work that has gone to building and administering this regime. Most companies in scope report on a calendar year basis, which means that receipts do not arrive evenly across fiscal years. The $279 million recorded in this current year includes only an initial portion of the payments that are now coming in. For 2026-27, the government projects corporate income tax revenue of $753 million. That figure reflects the balance of payments related to 2025 activity, adjusted for expected tax credits once final returns are assessed later in 2026. And it also includes an initial portion of payments expected for the 2026 calendar year. Mr. Speaker, this level of revenue gives Bermuda options the government has simply not had before. But we must be straight with the public about what this is and what this is not. These receipts will not be the same every year. Analysts have indicated that 2025 may represent the high point of a revenue cycle. As the cycle continues and the tax credit framework matures, we should expect gross corporate income tax revenues to moderate over time. Mr. Speaker, it would be irresponsible to use volatile corporate income tax receipts to fund the everyday running of government. This revenue should not be treated as permanent money for recurring spending. Instead, the government will use it to reduce debt, build reserves, and make targeted investments in infrastructure and permanently strengthening public services. Let's move on to debt, Mr. Speaker, because I know some people like to talk about debt.
Yes, they do.
Mr. Speaker, for years there have been those who speak about the national debt as though it is the only measure of good government. I, Mr. Speaker, do not share that view. But I do recognize this. Debt must be managed. And when you can pay it down without compromising your plan for the country, you act. Because of the way this government has implemented corporate income tax, and because of the fiscal discipline we have maintained while in office over time, we are now in a position to do something Bermuda has not been able to do for a long time: repay a significant portion of our debt. In the pre-budget report, the government projected that it would repay $500 million of debt maturing in January 2027. But, Mr. Speaker, collections and overall economic performance have come in stronger than projected. So I am pleased to inform and confirm to this honorable House today, Mr. Speaker, that this 2026-27 budget now projects the repayment in full of the $605 million of senior notes maturing in January 2027.
Say it again. Say it again for your opposite here. Hear that shadow? You hear that shadow?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, you heard that correctly. This government's intent to repay the $605 million of debt in full.
In full.
This decision will reduce. See, Mr. Speaker, they like to get ahead of themselves. They told them to wait their time until budget time. It's at the time. Wait the time until budget time.
This is budget time.
Can't wait for the report. Excited? Sure, we're excited.
Mr. Speaker, this decision will reduce gross debt from $3.29 billion to $2.69 billion. More importantly, it moves Bermuda on a clear path to eliminate debt within a decade. By 2028-29, the end of the three-year medium-term expenditure framework, the government projects that Bermuda's net debt to GDP ratio will fall to just 19%, far below the 50% limit put in place by the Fiscal Responsibility Panel. Mr. Speaker, to ensure that debt reduction strategy is executed well, the Ministry of Finance will re-impanel the Debt Management Committee this year. The committee will guide the next phase of our debt reduction plan by advising the best way to ensure continued reduction of our debt. Though there is a big debt repayment in January 2027, there may also be the chance to reduce debt in advance of other repayment dates in the near future.
Hear that, Dougie?
Mr. Speaker, before I turn to the policies that this new budget will fund, it is important that the people of this country understand in practical terms what the new corporate income tax means for them. For many years, Bermudians have seen economic growth and strong performance in international business, but have reasonably asked how that success translates into relief in their own daily lives. It is a fair question, but one that this budget begins to answer in a more direct way. The revenue generated from the corporate income tax allows this government to focus on two priorities that Bermuda has raised with us consistently: providing meaningful relief from rising costs and strengthening investment in services and infrastructure the country relies on. On the issue of relief, this budget delivers a significant reduction in payroll taxes. Every working Bermudian will see a reduction in their payroll tax burden, and no working person in Bermuda will pay more in payroll tax on this budget. No business will pay more in payroll taxes, and most businesses will have a reduction in payroll tax. At a time when families are dealing with the pressure of housing costs, food price, and everyday expenses, this government believes that people should be able to keep more of what they earn. This budget also includes measures to help to reduce the cost of electricity and provide some relief on the most persistent household and business expenses. Mr. Speaker, while relief is important, Bermudians have also been clear that they expect this government to invest in the future of this country, not just to manage the present. This budget, therefore, provides the largest capital program since 2008-2009 and places Bermuda on a path to increase capital spending to 2% of GDP by the next fiscal year, following the significant reduction in national debt that this budget achieves. This level of investment allows us to move beyond maintenance and begin addressing long-standing infrastructure needs across this island. As part of this commitment, the government will bring forward a capital plan to fund the renovation and modernization of public schools, ensuring that students across all parishes are learning in safe, modern, and properly equipped environments. The investment is also focused on ensuring that every child has access to a learning environment that supports their development and potential. These measures reflect a balanced approach, easing cost of living pressures where possible, while making strategic investments that underpin a healthy, fair, and resilient society for all of us. That is what the corporate income tax makes possible, and that is how this government is keeping its commitment to relief and investment for the people of Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, I told you it's a long speech. We're about a third of the way through. Shall I continue? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The next section is entitled Discipline, Delivery, and Strengthening Capacity. Mr. Speaker, as these relief measures and investments are outlined, it is also important to be clear about the discipline behind this budget and how those decisions were made. This is the first budget prepared fully in the era of corporate income tax. Naturally, there were those from His Majesty's loyal opposition who predicted, probably in the newspapers as recently as this week, that this government would neglect the debt and by extension neglect our people. They, as often always, Mr. Speaker, were wrong. Additional revenue does not remove the need for discipline in anything It increases the obligation to show value, results, and follow through. Our approach has been guided by a few practical rules. We have avoided automatic across-the-board increase in recurring spending. New revenues should not create permanent obligations that cannot be sustained if conditions change. We also prioritize fixing systems, not just funding symptoms. That means focusing on delivery bottlenecks that drive cost and frustration, rather than just repeatedly paying for the consequences when those systems fall short. Mr. Speaker, wherever possible, corporate income tax revenues are being directed towards investment that strengthen national capacity, reduce long-term pressure to the public purse, and improve Bermuda's ability to do more for itself. When in this budget we speak about nation building, we're speaking about whether we have the ability to house our people, whether our healthcare system is affordable, stable, and trusted, whether infrastructure projects move from approval to execution with minimal delay, and whether our courts function efficiently and our public services work when our people need them. This budget, therefore, placed priority on stabilizing, reforming, and improving what is under strain. It strengthens housing delivery machinery and the activation of dormant and derelict properties. It supports our healthcare system, including additional long-term and step-down care facility, so that hospital resources are used more effectively. It advances infrastructure renewal and modernization, and it invests in government's delivery capability, so approves policies and projects are executed more reliably. Mr. Speaker, the government is also taking steps to ensure that the new corporate income tax revenues contribute to long-term resilience. This includes funding for strategic transformational investments that are focused on the future and in keeping with our responsibility to remain good stewards for the next generation. Simply put, Mr. Speaker, the government intends to use today's opportunity to strengthen Bermuda's foundations for tomorrow, improving the delivery and leaving core systems in a better shape than we found them. That, Mr. Speaker, is the discipline behind this budget. And that is how responsible choices are translated into lasting benefits for Bermudians. Mr. Speaker, it is important to note that this moment is not a result of corporate income tax alone. It has been made possible by the hard choices this government has made since returning to office, steadily reducing deficits while making our tax system fairer and restoring balance to the public finances. Corporate income tax gives us additional room to act, but it builds upon foundations that were deliberately strengthened over the last 9 years. Mr. Speaker, I'll now outline the remaining policy pillars in this budget, which together reflect a consistent approach to strengthen foundations first, improve delivery capacity, and invest in systems that reduce long-term pressure rather than just simply funding short-term fixes. Tackling the affordable housing shortage. Mr. Speaker, housing is a critical issue for our country. The reality is that high construction costs, limited labor, and financing constraints make it increasingly difficult to deliver affordable homes for our people. It may sound like a cliche that the government must think outside of the box, but Mr. Speaker, that is exactly what this moment requires. Mr. Speaker, the Bermuda Housing Corporation, under the leadership of the Honorable Member, the Deputy Premier and Minister for Housing Municipalities, and the Honorable Member from constituency number 11, MP Christopher Famous, the Bermuda Housing Corporation are advancing permanent steel frame, modular, and precast concrete systems as part of our housing delivery model. These methods allow us to build faster and more cost effectively while ensuring that local contractors and trades remain central to delivery. These are not temporary structures. They are durable, high-quality homes built to Bermuda standards and designed to stand the test of time. By embracing proven modern construction techniques, we can build faster, build smarter, and expand supply while continuing to support local industry. Mr. Speaker, this budget also focuses on fixing the practical blockages that keep homes off the market and place housing out of reach for too many Bermudians. As part of our long-term commitment set out in our 2025 platform, government has begun the structured exploration of options to the future of the former Bermuda Beach Resort and Grand Atlantic site, with a clear objective of returning this public asset to productive housing use for Bermudians over time. Alongside, the government is advancing work to modernize the Acquisition of Land Act 1970 so that it better equips the government, acting through the Minister responsible for Public Works, to address a growing number of derelict and abandoned properties throughout the island. What you laughing at, Craig? You didn't read our platform? You didn't read our platform? Oh, you just hop across the other side. You know, come on. Mr. Speaker, housing is important, so I just want persons to make sure that they hear this. Because alongside this, the government is advancing work to modernize the Acquisition of Land Act 1970, so it better equips the government, acting through the Minister responsible for Public Works, to address the growing number of derelict and abandoned properties throughout the island. The policy aim is straightforward: to ensure properties left vacant for years can be returned to productive and socially beneficial use, supporting housing availability, community renewal, and economic activity, while fully respecting constitutional safeguards, fair compensation, and a transparent administrative process. This includes establishing a national framework for identifying, certifying, and managing derelict properties through coordinated action throughout government. Mr. Speaker, as legislation and supporting policy measures put in place to address vacant and derelict properties, restored or acquired properties will be directed towards first-time homeownership, social housing, and homelessness reduction pathways so unused housing stock serves community needs rather than someone's investment and desire. Mr. Speaker, I want to acknowledge that the use of compulsory acquisition powers in limited housing cases is not without historical sensitivity. Home ownership, family land, and proper retention are deeply important to Bermudian families, especially Black Bermudian families, and this government respects that history and that priority. Any such powers will be applied narrowly, transparently, and only where properties remain derelict or abandoned for extended periods and owners have not engaged despite repeated opportunities and support to bring those homes back into use. Mr. Speaker, the objective is not to take family property, but it is to prevent long-term blight, restore housing stock, and return neglected properties to productive community benefit. Taken together, these measures are about restoring balance to a housing system that is not functioning as it should, Mr. Speaker. It is not functioning as it should. And ensuring that land and buildings in Bermuda are working for the people of this country while not sitting idle, while families struggle to find a place to live. Delivery capacity is also being strengthened at the Bermuda Housing Corporation, who will receive additional project and technical support so that approved developments can advance. Moving on to our healthcare system. Mr. Speaker, a health system must function reliably before it can absorb major structural expansion. Therefore, this budget prioritizes stabilization and system efficiency as this government prepares to make universal healthcare a reality. One of the clearest pressure points today is patient flow at our hospital. Too many acute hospital beds are occupied by patients who no longer require acute care, but do not have appropriate step-down or long-term placements. That is difficult for patients, difficult for staff, and incredibly inefficient and expensive for the system. This budget allocates capital and program funding to expand step-down and long-term care capacity outside of the acute hospital setting. This includes additional facility capacity, alternative care models, and more integrated referral pathways so that patients can receive care at the appropriate level. These changes are designed to ease pressure on acute services and gradually improve system flow. Mr. Speaker, this budget continues and strengthens universal healthcare implementation, readiness work underway. As we all know, Mr. Speaker, universal coverage is complex, multi-year reform requiring legislative design, actuarial and financial analysis, provider frameworks, data systems, and phased transition planning. Moving ahead without that work would create fiscal and operational risk, and that's why this government is taking its time to make sure we get it right. But let's have no doubt, Mr. Speaker, it will be delivered. The work now being advanced is focused on ensuring that when that expansion occurs, it is properly sequenced and sustainable. Mr. Speaker, moving on to reinstating and reintegrating counseling services. This budget recognized that many of the pressures seen in our healthcare, justice, and education systems have roots much earlier in people's lives. Too often, access to counseling and early mental health support, particularly for young people, has been fragmented or inconsistent at a point where it could make the greatest difference. This budget provides for reinstatement and phased integration of counseling services, including youth counseling, with a coordinated framework that aligns health, education, and social services. The intention is not to recreate isolated programs, but to ensure that counseling support is accessible, properly resourced, and progressively embedded within the systems that already work with young people and families. It is our view that help earlier means fewer emergencies later. By intervening earlier and more consistently, we reduce the likelihood that manageable challenges escalate into crises that place heavier strains on hospitals, courts, and social services. This is a disciplined and preventative investment that improves well-being, supports families, and helps lower long-term public costs. Making essential goods more affordable, Mr. Speaker, food, shipping, and local production. Mr. Speaker, affordability is not only about price at checkout, but it is about also whether the government has built the conditions for local production, competition, and supply resilience. This budget therefore includes targeted steps to support domestic food production and reduce avoidable administrative costs that can stand between Bermudians and more affordable essentials. This budget provides for the waiving of certain government fees for registered farmers relating to applications, testing, inspection, and shipment processing for the regulated importation of approved pesticides, crop plants, and growing media used in local food production. These are technical charges, but for small and medium-sized producers, they accumulate quickly and can slow expansion. Reduce them as a practical way to support farmers and lower barriers to increase output. The goal is to make it easier for local food producers to grow more food more efficiently at a lower cost. This step sits alongside wider efforts to support community-based food initiatives, streamline process for local producers, and explore additional shipping and logistics pathways to improve supply flexibility. Together, these measures are designed to strengthen food security and help ensure that more of what Bermudians consume can be produced, distributed, and priced sustainably closer to home. Moving on to cooperative legislation and the Cooperative Seed Fund, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as this government prepares for the introduction of cooperatives legislation in Bermuda, this budget recognizes a practical truth. Legislation alone does not create opportunity unless it is matched with practical support. New legal frameworks only deliver results when people have the resource and technical help to use them effectively. This budget establishes a strategic investments envelope, a dedicated pool of funding designed to support future-focused initiatives in areas such as digital transformation, entrepreneurship, artificial intelligence employment, and food security. Within this strategic investment envelope, this government provides for funding to support the practical establishment and early development of cooperatives across the island. This includes capitalizing a cooperative seed fund or grants program to deliver targeted financial assistance and technical support for startup costs, governance structures, and compliance requirements, and initial business development. The objective is straightforward, Mr. Speaker. Once cooperative legislation is enacted, there should be a clear and properly resourced pathway for new cooperatives to form and operate. By pairing legislation with funding support, technical guidance, and appropriate oversight, we are giving cooperatives a real pathway from idea to operation, which will strengthen Bermuda's domestic economy. This budget also signals this government's intent to broaden financial participation and to support domestic competition by providing funding support to existing cooperative financial institutions in Bermuda to implement digital finance infrastructure. Work in this area will proceed with regulatory readiness as a prerequisite. However, the goal, Mr. Speaker, is very simple: to support a more diverse local financial ecosystem. Mr. Speaker, none of these investments deliver results if the state itself cannot execute effectively. For that reason, this budget also targets core delivery capability. Resources are being provided to strengthen justice system capability and court modernization, including staffing support, process improvements, and enabling infrastructure to improve case throughput and timelines. An effective justice system underpins both social stability and economic confidence. Funding is also provided for coordinated upgrade in border, customs, coast guard, and immigration capability, including equipment modernization, training, and operational coordination. Securing borders and ports of entry is a basic state responsibility and essential to public safety and international credibility. Delivery capability within the public service is also being reinforced through continued investment in central policy coordination, ensuring that approved policies and funded projects are actually delivered successfully. In parallel, funded programs are already underway to strengthen public service talent and leadership pipeline. Mr. Speaker, having reviewed the performance of the past and the progress of the current year, and having explained the policy rationale for the choices that this government has made in this budget, I now turn to the estimates of revenue expenditure for the fiscal year 2026-27. We know, Mr. Speaker, as I've said, that this budget has framed a unique and historic moment in our journey, representing the first full year where a structural change to our tax system combined with years of disciplined economic management converged to provide Bermuda with a level of fiscal capacity that was once thought to be out of reach. Let me start, Mr. Speaker, with our revenue projections. Mr. Speaker, the revenue estimates for the upcoming fiscal year represent a historic shift in our financial position. Total revenue for fiscal year 2026-27 is estimated at $2.03 billion, Mr. Speaker. This is a landmark achievement as the first time in our history that government revenue is projected to exceed the $2 billion mark. This represents a substantial increase of $596.3 million, or 41.7% over the original estimate for the current fiscal year. The primary drivers increase the provision for corporate income tax receipts, which, as mentioned earlier in the speech, is estimated at $753.2 million for the coming year. This performance is as a result of years of meticulous work by the Ministry of Finance and the Corporate Income Tax Agency, and also the International Tax Working Group, to ensure that Bermuda remains a premier jurisdiction while meeting our international obligations. Mr. Speaker, the government has remained committed to the principle of fairness. We promise to reduce the burden on Bermuda's workers. Through these changes that I'm about to announce, the government will ensure that no worker in this country will pay main payroll tax. This is a deliberate policy to increase the take-home pay of Bermudians and to stimulate activity in our local economy. Moving to tax and fee changes, Mr. Speaker. I will begin with a simple fact. I think I've said it a few times already. No business in Bermuda will pay more in employer payroll tax in this budget, and no worker in Bermuda will pay more in employee payroll taxes. Every employer rate will either go down at its current level or will decrease. Similarly, the total tax bill for every worker on this island will go down. Every worker will go down. Let's go to employer payroll tax reductions. Mr. Speaker, the government is providing relief to employers, ensuring that they can reduce their costs of doing business. The following employer payroll tax rates will decrease effective the 1st of April, 2026. International business exempted undertakings, the rate will decrease from 10.25% to 9.75%. Large local employers that have remuneration greater than $1 million, the rate will be reduced from 10% to 9.5%. The rates will be reduced for all medium-sized businesses, that is with remuneration between $200,000 and $1 million, by 0.5%. Hospitality, which is hotels, guest houses, and restaurants, to support our vital tourism sector, that rate will be reduced from 5% to 4%. Retail special group, to support our retailers, that rate will be lowered from 6% to 5%. The Bermuda Hospitals Board and corporations of Hamilton and St. George, the rate will move from 3.5% to 3%. And, Mr. Speaker, importantly to note that nursing and rest homes will be added to this category to reduce their expenses as they care for a growing senior population. Self-employed caregivers, in line with our platform commitments, employer payroll taxes for self-employed caregivers will be eliminated. Support for seniors. The employer portion of payroll tax to be exempted on the first $96,000 remuneration for Bermudian employees aged 65 and over, initiatives to support seniors who want to remain in the workforce. And finally, Mr. Speaker, the local dividend exemption is being raised from $10,000 a year to $20,000 a year. The government is also maintaining the 0 or 1% rates for our small businesses, charities, and economic empowerment zones. As I said, Mr. Speaker, no entity in Bermuda will pay more in taxes under this budget. Now, Mr. Speaker, moving to the employee payroll tax. This government is delivering a comprehensive reduction of the tax burden for all people working in Bermuda. This will be achieved through a targeted adjustment of our marginal tax bands, ensuring that all workers have a tax reduction. Starting the 1st of April 2025, government is making the following adjustments to our marginal tax rates. Band 1, earnings up to $48,000 will be reduced from 0.5% to 0.25%. Band 2, earnings between $48,000 and $96,000 will be reduced by 1.5%. They will go from 9.25% to 7.75%. Band 3, earnings between $96,000 and $200,000. The marginal rate for this portion of income will move from 10% to 10.75%. Bands 4 and 5 will remain the same. Mr. Speaker, as I have to do every time we change payroll tax rates, because there'll be some persons who may want to misrepresent what is happening, so I'm taking my time to spell it out. So there's no confusion. Because yes, I know you like to confuse people, but just I want to get it right this time. Because our tax system is marginal, every worker, regardless of their total salary, benefits from the lower rates in the first two bands. And these savings more than offset the adjustment of the third band, resulting in a net tax cut for everyone. Everyone. Examples are as follows. A worker earning $48,000 will see their annual tax drop from $240 to $120, a 50% reduction. A public officer earning $96,000 will see their bill drop from $4,680 to $3,840, a direct saving of $840 a year. For a professional earning $120,000, the tax bill drops from $7,080 to $6,420, putting $660 back into their pocket. Yes, Mr. Speaker, everyone will pay lower taxes. Everyone.
No targeted, huh?
Mr. Speaker, I can't. Mr. Speaker, progress since 2017, delivering Ms. Fairness. Mr. Speaker, we must also look at the long-term progress of this government. When taking office in 2017, the tax burden on our workers was the highest ever. The highest ever when we took office, Mr. Speaker. Now all working class Bermudians are paying far less in taxes than they were 9 years ago. In 2017, a worker earning $48,000 paid $2,280 in annual payroll tax. Under this budget, Mr. Speaker, they will pay just $120 a year. That is a 95% reduction in their tax burden since the PLP took office. In 2017, a worker earning $96,000 paid $5,820. Today, they pay just $3,840, a nearly $2,000 annual saving for that worker, or $4,000 a year more for a family. That is what we've done, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, relief in this budget does not end with payroll tax reductions. This government has reduced the tax burden for working families time and time again, and this budget continues its work. Lower electricity costs. Mr. Speaker, the government will eliminate the final 4 cents per liter of customs duty on fuel for electricity generation, resulting in lower energy costs for homes and businesses. This reduction will mean that over the past 2 years, this progressive Labor Party government has eliminated the taxes on fuel for electricity generation that the other side doubled, Mr. Speaker, saving the average household $375 a year. Moving to essential goods, Mr. Speaker, to support the affordable Bermuda agenda, spearheaded by the honorable member for the Minister for Home Affairs, this government will reduce or eliminate duty rates on a wider range of essential goods. These include everyday household hygiene and cleaning products, infant nutrition and care items, core dairy products, bakery goods, grains, pantry staples, selected meats, and fresh produce. These are the basics that families purchase week after week, and this measure is designed to ease pressure at checkout counter and make a practical difference in the cost of living for Bermudian households. Moving on to vehicle licensing, Mr. Speaker, this government will keep its commitment to reduce private car licensing fees by a further 10%, effective April 1st. For Bermudian families, vehicle licensing is a fixed annual cost, and this reduction provides a direct and predictable relief. It is also a practical step towards lowering household expenses, ensuring that Bermudians benefit from the country's stronger financial position. Mr. Speaker, these measures are about one thing: putting money back in people's pockets and easing the cost pressures that families are feeling. Corporate income tax gives the ability to do that, and this budget ensures that Bermudians benefit directly. Mr. Speaker, further adjustments will be made to customs duty. Recent changes to reduce or eliminate duty on all motor vehicle parts and building supplies unintentionally missed some tariff codes. Those missing codes will be added and will be done during this budget session. Also, Mr. Speaker, as you know, we have an open budgeting process. People can write in for submissions following representations from florists in Bermuda. And to support our hotel and hospitality sector, duty charge on imported fresh flowers will be reduced from 25% to 5%. Plenty of time for next year. We've been predicting that for a while. It ain't working very well, is it? I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker. The deputy leader for the opposition saying I'll be gone next year. I said he's predicting I'll be gone for quite some time. It's all right. Let me continue, Mr. Speaker. This budget, it's just getting warmed up right now. Mr. Speaker, current account expenditure, excluding debt service, is estimated at $1.25 billion. This is an increase of $137.7 million, or 12.4% over the 2025-26 original estimate. This figure includes a baseline expenditure of $1.12 billion and a provision of $124 million for strategic investments. The baseline expenditure represents the day-to-day cost of government services for all ministries, which will be detailed later in this statement. The government has maintained a disciplined approach to these costs. However, there are increases for all ministries tied to agreements reached with public sector employees, which results in salary and overhead costs rising, contributing to the sizable increase in baseline spending. Further contributors to the baseline current account increase are the mid-year allocations appropriated to ministries. These amounts have carried into the new fiscal year, and of course, Mr. Speaker, as those amounts were not full year amounts, some of those amounts are now higher because they must represent the value for the full year. Let me talk about, Mr. Speaker, transformational investments. Mr. Speaker, a stronger fiscal position gives the ability to invest in areas that shape the long-term well-being of our people. This budget allocates $124 million in strategic and transformational investments, primarily in healthcare, while also strengthening the capacity of our public service and investing in the future resilience of our economy. First, I will go to expanded healthcare support, $87 million. Mr. Speaker, in our 2025 general election manifesto, the government committed to prioritizing the health of our people. This budget delivers on that commitment with $87 million allocated to the Bermuda Hospitals Board, the continued role of universal health coverage, and additional investment in the health insurance department to provide greater levels of healthcare access. A further $3 million is allocated to advance universal health coverage and digital health initiatives. This continues the work already underway to modernize how care is funded, delivered, and accessed. $14 million is carried forward to the health insurance department to fund the expansion of health services under HIP and Future Care, including the already rolled out free annual health examinations and expanded prescription drug coverage. Further, and I want you to hear this, Mr. Speaker, the department will expand preventative access with an additional number of primary care visits with a set copay of $25. These are practical measures that reduce financial barriers to preventative care. The Bermuda Hospitals Board will receive $55 million in time-bound support to meet statutory, contractual, and operational obligations and to address near-term cash flow pressures. Mr. Speaker, hospital services are not optional. Investment here ensures continuity of care, stability for frontline staff, and protection of essential services, while longer-term reforms, as mentioned earlier in this budget speech, continue. Moving to expanding future care support for our seniors. Mr. Speaker, this budget also takes a major step in implementing the recommendations of the Tax Reform Commission. This government is allocating $15 million towards future care premium subsidies for low-income seniors, partially implementing the first expenditure waterfall of the Tax Reform Commission's recommended priorities. While the Commission's full recommendation was $30 million, this first phase will provide coverage support for up to 2,200 seniors, approximately 15% of Bermuda's senior population. This is significant as it represents the first direct deployment of corporate income tax capacity into the waterfall framework that the Tax Reform Commission laid out for the island. It targets relief where it's most needed amongst seniors living on fixed incomes and establishes the foundation for expansion in future years as fiscal space allows. Supporting the public service, $23 million. $12 million has been allocated towards the Government Employee Health Insurance Fund to ensure its long-term sustainability in the face of rising medical costs and claims. An additional $11 million is allocated for employee retention and benefits, reflecting our commitment to maintaining a professional and capable public service. Transformational funding, $14 million. Mr. Speaker, beyond healthcare, this budget establishes a $14 million pool of transformational funding to support strategic projects that strengthen long-term economic resilience and government productivity. This is not a pre-allocated spending line, but a centrally managed fund that ministries may access for clearly defined and town-bound initiatives. To qualify for funding, projects must demonstrate measurable impact, align with national priorities, and be approved by Cabinet under existing procurement rules. Importantly, this funding does not create a permanent baseline obligation. It is deliberately structured as one-off funding and has not been automatically carried forward under the medium-term expenditure framework. This drives the need to ensure that priority reforms are accelerated without adding structural costs into future budgets. And of course, Mr. Speaker, strategic investments is done right. It should lower or at least moderate future costs. The $14 million is assigned as follows. $5 million is allocated to advance Bermuda's on-chain economy and strengthen our global leadership position in digital assets. Projects will improve financial efficiency both inside and outside of government. $3 million is allocated to support entrepreneurship and cooperatives, strengthening local ownership and business formation. $3 million is allocated for the deployment of proven artificial intelligence projects within government to improve the efficiency of public services. And $3 million is allocated to enhance food security and supply chain resilience, reducing vulnerability to external disruptions. Mr. Speaker, this is how you translate fiscal strength into lasting change for the future. Now, Mr. Speaker, I would like to move on to the capital expenditure for this year's budget. Mr. Speaker, capital expenditure for the 2026-27 fiscal year is estimated at $182 million, Mr. Speaker. That is an increase of 32.2% or $32.2 million or 21% over the original estimate of the prior year. This is the largest planned capital program since 2008, 2009, and it is another step forward towards increasing capital spending to the goal of 2% of GDP. As we know, Mr. Speaker, for too long, the government has been forced to stretch or try to stretch the life of critical assets because finances simply did not allow us what needed to be done. That approach, as we've all seen and experienced, comes with a cost and eventually shows up in breakdowns, delays, and risks to public safety. With our stronger fiscal position, we are now better placed to invest for the future while being more proactive on maintaining existing assets. This budget includes $9.4 million for the Swing Bridge, $8.8 million for the expansion of the Tynes Bay waste-to-energy facilities. These are national assets that must work as they affect the daily functioning of the country and they directly touch public safety and health. The government is also putting major resources into the facilities that serve families. This budget allocates $26.9 million to the Bermuda Housing Corporation to accelerate refurbishment and move new affordable housing units forward. It also contains $14 million in capital funding, which is a 71% increase for the Ministry of Education to upgrade facilities, invest in new technologies at our public schools and the Bermuda College. Mr. Speaker, the government is also investing in things people see and feel every day. $1.5 million has been allocated to address dangerous walls, $5 million for a continued aggressive roadworks program. We're also investing $1.4 million in solar PV for government buildings to cut energy costs, reduce emissions, and along with $3.5 million for new buses and $5.3 million for vital vehicles and equipment. Finally, Mr. Speaker, as I would say, a farewell gift to the wonderful members who I've served with in this House, this budget includes, for the first time, a $3 million allocation to community improvement projects. This funding will support projects in constituencies put forward by members of parliament. Bigger capital projects should not just fund large projects, but also the smaller improvements that may improve the quality of life in Bermuda. At least one person's happy. Maybe just Shay will give them money. Mr. Speaker, debt service and guarantee management costs for fiscal year 2026-27 are estimated at $124.75 million, and this represents a decrease of $2.75 million or 2.5% compared for the original estimate for this current fiscal year. This reduction in our annual interest expense is a direct result of the proactive debt management strategy I have shared with this Honorable House earlier today. And by utilizing our improved fiscal capacity to repay $605 million in senior notes in full, the government is successfully reducing the total amount of outstanding debt and consequently, of course, the cost of servicing it. While savings in this fiscal year are a positive step, our medium-term financial projections show that as a result of the planned $605 million repayment, our interest costs are estimated to fall significantly to $102 million the following fiscal year. This means, Mr. Speaker, that this single decisive action to reduce the island's debt burden will save the taxpayers of Bermuda $25 million every single year in interest costs alone. It represents a permanent reduction in the cost of debt and a permanent increase in our ability to fund the priorities of the people. Mr. Speaker, this budget reflects priorities that the government has set for the island, confirmed by the electorate in our election victory a year and 2 days ago. And most importantly, this budget funds the work required to deliver on those priorities. I will now highlight key allocations across a number of ministries and departments. Mr. Speaker, the Cabinet Office and Digital Innovation have been allocated $58.9 million, an increase of $5.3 million or 10%. The Department of Library and Archives funding supports a new youth library reach officer to expand services for young people and students and the continued digitization of Bermuda's archival records to ensure they are preserved and accessible to the public. In the Department of Planning, funding supports the use of artificial intelligence tools to expedite building permit approvals and improve decision-making, alongside efforts to update the Bermuda Plan and shorten approval timeline. Digital transformation funding advances the one-stop shop in online payments for government services, expanding online access with an upgraded government portal to be launched this year. The Department of Information Digital Technologies funding expands the IDT apprenticeship program, building local digital skills and preparing the next generation for careers in technology. Additional investments strengthen cybersecurity and ensures government systems remain secure and reliable. The Department of Employee and Organization Development receives additional funding to support training and workforce development. And Mr. Speaker, if you look inside of the items in the budget, you will see there's a significant increase in training investment inside of this budget. And also, they have received funding for the launch of the new Public Service Scholarship Program, which was highlighted inside of our election manifesto. And this program provides tuition support for Bermudians pursuing priority fields of study in exchange for a 5-year commitment to serve their country in the public service or in public health care. It creates a clear pathway for talented Bermudians to build meaningful careers at home while strengthening the future leadership of our public service. Under capital expenditure, funding continues for community club development, including a $500,000 allocation, alongside significant investment in digital infrastructure to strengthen cybersecurity and upgrade existing government systems. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Justice, and my nod, of course, the Honorable Minister of Justice and Attorney General, who is with us in the chamber, has been allocated $63.24 million, an increase of $5.5 million, or 9.5%. The majority of this increase attributable to salary-related costs, reflecting approved agreements and salaries across the ministry's departments. However, the Departments of Corrections will recruit additional staff to strengthen frontline capacity and support safe, effective management of correctional facilities. Capital funding has been allocated for the replacement of obsolete furniture and essential fixtures, addressing long-standing needs and improving the functionality and safety of working and living conditions within correctional facilities. In addition, capital funding has been provided for the implementation of a corrections management system, a critical modernization initiative that will introduce electronic platforms to support inmate record management. This is consistent with the recommendations of the recent Prisons Review. The Department of Public Prosecutions will receive support in preparation for hosting the 2027 International Prosecutors Conference. This significant event will enhance Bermuda's international standing within the global prosecutorial community and strengthen professional networks that contribute to the continued development of prosecutorial excellence. At the ministry's headquarters, funding has been allocated to meet the ministry's obligations under the National Anti-Money Laundering Committee framework and will support essential regional and international engagements, assuring that Bermuda is aligned with global standards in AML and the countering the financing of terrorism to protect our international reputation. Additional funds in the Ministry of Justice have been allocated to support the relocation of the Legal Aid Office to provide for more functional and effective environment for staff and to improve accessibility for clients. Moving to the Ministry of Finance, Mr. Speaker. The Ministry of Finance has been allocated $277.3 million, an increase of 10.7%, or $10.7 million, or 4%. A total of $116.7 million for employee overheads, an increase of $13.5 million, and interest on debt of $124.8 million together represent 87.1% of the funds, 87.1% of the funds assigned to the ministry. The interest allocation, of course, reflects a small reduction due to the planned earlier debt repayment. The Ministry of Finance has retained a budget of $3.5 million to work with external experts in progressing reforms to the tax framework, including the implementation of housing tax credits, so I can fund that massive housing program. Other priorities for the ministry include advancing contributory pension reform while continuing the work required ahead of Bermuda's mutual evaluation assessment. Having transferred the beneficial ownership register from the Bermuda Monetary Authority to the Registrar of Companies, we will advance the implementation of legitimate interest access in line with Bermuda's international commitments. The ministry has allocated $2.7 million in capital funding, primarily for IT upgrades throughout its departments. Moving to the Ministry of Education, Mr. Speaker. The Ministry of Education has been allocated $156.5 million, representing an increase of $7.3 million, or 5% over the prior year. Capital funding has been increased by 71%, supporting a stronger overall investment in maintenance and upkeep of all public schools. This includes phased safety and security upgrades, electrical and ICT readiness improvements, initiatives to improve air quality, including classrooms, capital and operational investments to support continued enhancements to signature schools at the Barclay Institute, Cedar Bridge Academy, and Sands Secondary School, alongside upgrades to technological infrastructures and modernized computer labs, faster internet access, and use of digital learning platforms. The ministry's scholarship and awards funding has been increased by $420,000 to a total $2.2 million for post-secondary education. Diallo, how much was it when we came into office? Less than $1 million? Yes. Less than $1 million when we came to office, Mr. Speaker, so we more than doubled the scholarship budget. This expanded investment provides more opportunities for young adults to increase access to financial support and pursue tertiary education and training. The number of government scholarships will be increased by 2, specifically to support students demonstrating proficiency and interest in creative arts, important, Mr. Speaker, and also health and sports-related fields. Additional funding has been allocated to several awards categories, including technical and vocational, applied science, non-traditional, teacher education, and teacher sabbatical awards. Funding is also provided for Bermuda College, supporting delivery of its 2025 to 30 strategic plan, expanded program accessibility, and stronger alignment with Bermuda's workforce and economic priorities and preparation for an upcoming accreditation review. Moving to the Ministry of Health, Mr. Speaker. The Ministry of Health has been allocated $302.5 million, an increase of $57 million, or approximately 23% over the previous year. This increase reflects targeted investments to improve healthcare affordability, stabilize hospital services, and advance universal health coverage. The Ministry of Health's priorities for the coming fiscal year focus on expanding community care, advancing universal health coverage by modernizing the health system, and the funding will support Bermuda hospitals boards while strengthening community services so residents receive care in the appropriate setting. To meet growing long-term care needs, the ministry will advance the rebuild of the new Leafroy House with increased bed capacity, advance the Sylvia Richardson Care Facility expansion, and establish a 30-bed unit to improve patient flow and ease emergency department pressure at the Bermuda Hospitals Board. Primary care investments include refurbishing the Hamilton Health Center, St. George's Clinic, and Somerset Clinic, implementing modern electronic medical records, and expanding capacity for low acuity care. Advancing universal health coverage remains central, and by 2026, this year, October 2026, all local residents will have access to health benefits. I want to say it one more time, Mr. Speaker. Advancing universal health coverage remains central, and by October 2026, all local residents will have access to health benefits. This work includes finalizing the core benefits package, which includes regulation of copays for those with benefits, and the continuing subsidies for HIP and future care. The ministry will also advance workforce development through extended nursing scholarships. Moving to the Ministry of Economy and Labor, Mr. Speaker, the ministry has been allocated $29.1 million, an increase of $1.5 million. This investment will advance the continued implementation of the economic development strategy, where significant progress has been achieved. The Bermuda Economic Development Corporation will receive funding of $2.2 million, which will strengthen entrepreneurship and bolster the growth of small and medium-sized businesses. The Bermuda Business Development Agency, having completed its transition to an investment promotion agency, will receive $4.3 million to enhance its role in positioning Bermuda as a premier blue-chip jurisdiction for foreign direct investments in increasingly competitive global markets. The Department of Workforce Development will receive an additional $213,000 to support strategic planning and the delivery of high-quality programs. Specifically, these funds will strengthen local and overseas apprenticeship training, improve workforce readiness, expand digital literacy initiatives for sectors such as construction, hospitality, and digital finance. The Registry General will receive an allocation that is increased by $265,000 to capitalize on the greater revenue opportunities created by the new Trademarks Act 2023, which went into effect last year. The funding will support continued modernization of patent examinations, ensuring adequate training and recruitment to meet increased demand. The largest increase within the ministry is the Department of Statistics, which will receive an additional allocation of $1.25 million. And this additional funding is dedicated to the 2026 Census of Population and Housing. Moving on to the Ministry of Public Works and Environment. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Public Works and Environment has been allocated $90.9 million, an increase of 6.8% or $6.8 million or 8%. Improving infrastructure and community safety remains a priority. As such, the government has allocated an additional $1 million in funding to address safety concerns on private roads. Once legislative changes are in place, this funding will improve safety standards and ensure consistent maintenance across affected neighborhoods. With an investment of $9 million, the ministry will begin the construction of the new swing bridge, a critical piece of our national infrastructure and vital transport corridor for the people in St. George's. In addition, $500,000 will be allocated for additional workers and machineries to address overgrown roadside verges, improving safety along our main roads as well as the island's overall appearance. The ministry will be investing $2.5 million to break ground on the new agricultural center, unfortunately delayed from last year, and to preserve and revitalize public assets. $4.5 million will be used to refurbish and redevelop several underutilized government properties, including Montpelier, the Admiralty House Ballroom, and the St. David's Lighthouse.
Oh, yes.
These improvements will return valuable assets to productive use and enhance community engagement with these historic sites. A further $1.7 million will support restoration works across national parks and public lands, including botanical gardens, Admiralty House Park, and several public beaches. Environmental sustainability remains central to the work of the ministry, and therefore $9 million has been allocated to initiate the full refurbishment of the island's waste management infrastructure at the Tynes Bay Waste-to-Energy facility. Finally, $1.4 million will advance the government's renewable energy commitment through the rooftop solar program by installing systems across multiple public buildings. Moving to the Ministry of Tourism and Transport, Culture and Sport. The Ministry of Tourism and Transport, Culture and Sport has been allocated $109.1 million, an increase of $7.5 million or 7%. The public transportation has been allocated $3.5 million in additional capital funding to support the arrival of 20 new electric buses, along with funding to cover the down payment to order a further 20 new buses. The ministry will continue to provide grant funding that directly supports grassroots and community cultural events to help local vendors, artists, and small businesses. In 2024-25, the program supported 36 local vendors, and thus far this year has already supported 36 vendors, and showing the continued focus on uplifting community-led initiatives and local participation. The Bermuda Tourism Authority will receive a $4 million funding boost, and this grant funding represents targeted investment to strengthen Bermuda's tourism sector with a particular focus on driving visitor demand during the months outside the summer season. Why is this important? Because this additional funding will support the expansion of the sales and marketing activities to effectively promote the 617 new hotel rooms expected to come online later this year due to the opening of the Fairmont Southampton property, Mr. Speaker. An overall increase of $759,000 has been allocated to the Department of Sport and Recreation's operating budget. Of this, $560,000 is specifically designated to support the operation of the golf courses. The departments will continue to offer support to parents by offering Camp Connect again this summer, providing approximately 4,000 summer day camp access space for school-age children during the summer break. The support of national sporting bodies and elite athletes also remains at the forefront, with over $2 million allocated towards those initiatives. In addition, $2.5 million in capital funding has been allocated to the National Sports Center to advance critical infrastructure improvements. These include the completion of repairs to the grandstand roof, pool cleaning and maintenance works, asphalting of the main parking lot, and upgrades to the north field lighting system. An increase of approximately $1 million in the Bermuda Airport Authority's grant funding is for operational budget, will support succession planning and development initiatives for the authority's aging professional workforce. And the Airports Authority capital budget will increase, which will also resource critical projects for IT and cyber resilience related initiatives, structural health and safety, and important for me, and I'm sure many people in this country who always look at that site and get upset when it goes down, upgrades to the Bermuda weather radar. The Ministry of National Security has been allocated $137 million, Mr. Speaker, an increase of $9 million or 7%. This increase will provide funding to cover the salary increases awarded to all government employees, but will also enable departments to continue their recruitment drives to fill vacant posts in critical areas within the Bermuda Police Service, Customs, the Bermuda Fire Rescue Service. Moreover, this additional funding will enable the Royal Bermuda Regiment to increase its border protection maritime operations via recruitment for new posts within the Coast Guard. As part of the National Violence Reduction Strategy, Ministry Headquarters has been allocated funding to continue its support for outreach and counseling services to the community. This will provide support for education programs and anti-violence campaigns, as well as individual and family counseling and support services, all of which are aimed at reducing violence in the community. As mentioned earlier, funding has been allocated to Bermuda National Drug Control for its adolescent substance abuse treatment program. This is to address the fact that at present there is no specific addiction treatment program designed to provide services to adolescents between the ages of 10 and 18 years, and that will be fixed inside of this particular budget. Capital funding of $9.3 million has been allocated for 2026-27, and this funding will cover the cost of purchasing new vessels for the Coast Guard, as well as the completion of the Coast Guard maintenance shed. This allocation will also fund the purchase of a new truck for the Bermuda Fire and Rescue Service, continued renovation of the police headquarters in Prospect, and additional capital funding has been allocated to Customs for the construction of the scanner hull and docks, and it's not here, but will also complete the deployment of the speed camera system. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Youth, Social Development, and Seniors has been allocated $97.2 million, an increase of $6 million, or 6.6%. New funding will establish a disability unit within the Aging Disability Services for enhanced care and alignment with the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. This new unit will support accessibility and inclusion policy services and awareness for individuals living with disabilities. Amendments to the Child Daycare Allowance Act will boost assistance for families with multiple children under age 4, improving affordability for working parents. The income threshold for financial assistance pensioners has been increased from $500 to $800, and this budget will support that increase, enabling recipients to retain more income. A National Youth Council will ensure young Bermudians' voices are considered in policymaking, and this budget provides more avenues for youth engagement in civic affairs, promoting leadership opportunities, and soliciting feedback through community events and forums. The Charities Act will also be modernized to strengthen AML and counterterrorism measures, protecting nonprofits from exploitation, and increased funds will support nursing homes and homelessness initiatives with a comprehensive strategy to prevent and address homelessness through early intervention and essential services. Capital investment will continue with the development of a new senior daycare facility at the former Gilbert Institute site in Pageant, and this will provide structured day programs and respite services and recreational activities for seniors. Moving on, Mr. Speaker, to the Ministry of Home Affairs. The Ministry of Home Affairs has been allocated $6.6 million for the next fiscal year, representing an increase of $800,000 or 14%. The budget moves from foundation to sustained delivery, translating the framework established in 2025-26 into the institutional capacity and legislative reform that the public has requested. This new budget will fund a new policy analyst hired to address a critical staffing gap and advance the implementation of affordability initiatives that emerge from public engagement, including the expansion of the Grow, Eat, Save program, which addresses food security. A residential rent registry covering all rented units will be established to protect residents against unfair and arbitrary rent increases, responding to the housing concerns that top the public's list of priorities. A human resources structure will also be developed for consumer affairs to support piloting the transfer of consumer protection functions other than housing to the regulatory authority, which will strengthen market oversight for residents and businesses. The Department of Energy will receive an additional allocation to support the implementation of the government's energy policy and the diversification of Bermuda's energy sector, including the hiring of a renewable energy and business innovation officer to support Bermuda's energy transition and develop strategies for emerging industries. Allocated fund will also be used to invest in the next generation of Bermudians, to expand in bursary support for succession planning, and to build technical, commercial, and policy expertise within the Department for Energy Transition. Capital investment will also modernize the Land Title Registration Department's IT system and advance a pilot community solar project to expand access to clean, affordable energy for residents. Only 10 pages left, Mr. Speaker.
Take your time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ministry of Housing and Municipalities. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Housing and Municipalities has allocated an operational budget of $8.2 million, an increase of 8.6%, alongside a significantly expanded capital program of $32.9 million, representing a 43% increase over the previous year, which of course, Mr. Speaker, was at that time a record investment in affordable housing. This budget supports the ministry's work to advance and prepare for the implementation of the Draft Affordable Housing Strategy 2025-35. Increased funding for the Bermuda Housing Corporation will support the delivery of new housing units, expanded maintenance and refurbishment works, and additional project managers to advance a myriad of affordable housing projects. These investments will also strengthen the quality and availability of public housing and deliver housing infrastructure improvements in existing developments, such as Cedar Park, Mayor Victoria Road, and Alexandra Road. I'm sure the member for 21 wants word. He wants to be included there as well. What? I got it. Over the last several months, the government has been developing a comprehensive affordable housing strategy while also undertaking detailed research into modern construction methods and engaging with companies capable of delivering these solutions, including precast concrete and modular construction. Through this work, more than 30 potential sites have been identified, along with a first phase of development that is ready to proceed and capable of making material impact on the island's housing needs. I want you to hear this, Mr. Speaker. 3 priority sites have now been confirmed, namely the Albert and Victoria Row housing sites owned by the Bermuda Land Management Corporation and a vacant government-owned site adjacent to Dr. Kent Park in Southampton. Financing in the near term will be provided through local financial institutions, supported by a government letter of guarantee for up to $90 million for the immediate delivery of housing, Mr. Speaker. That covers the ministries, Mr. Speaker. I will now move on to pension reform before I close out today's address. Mr. Speaker, last year this government said, almost done. Mr. Speaker, last year this government did what many said could not be done by taking on the long overdue reform of the Public Service Superannuation Fund. And this government delivered it. For more than a decade, the sustainability of that fund hung over the public purse and over the country's finances. People talked about it, reports were written, promises were made, but the hard decisions were avoided. Through Public Service Superannuation Stabilization Amendment Act 2025, the government acted. We stabilized the fund and we put the pension plan on a stronger footing for the long term. Mr. Speaker, this matters because the pension promise matters. It matters to the teacher in the classroom, the nurse on the ward, and the police officer patrol, and the firefighter who answers the call. These are people who keep Bermuda running, and whether they serve this country, and however they serve this country, they deserve the certainty that their pension they earn will be there. Mr. Speaker, with the fund stabilized, the government is now able to address the matter that public sector retirees have raised with me repeatedly, and I'm sure with other honorable members. Public service pensions have been frozen since 2014. That is more than a decade in which the cost of living has moved, but pension benefits have not. Mr. Speaker, after a lifetime of service, retirees should not be left falling further behind. Many are living on fixed incomes, and when prices rise year after year, the pressure is real. This is about basic fairness and respect for those who serve Bermuda. That is why I'm pleased to announce, Mr. Speaker, that the government will provide a one-time 10% increase for public sector retirees that will be legislated later this year and take effect from the 1st of April, 2026. Mr. Speaker, this uplift is possible because the fund has been stabilized, and because it is now being managed on a stronger, more responsible footing. And, Mr. Speaker, while the government is not yet in a position to return to automatic annual cost of living adjustments, because it must stay focused on improving the funded position over time, this one-time 10% increase provides real and well-deserved relief now to those who spent their working lives serving Bermuda. Mr. Speaker, having dealt with the PSSF, the government must now turn its attention to the contributory pension fund, the social insurance safety net for every working Bermudian. The same basic truth applies, Mr. Speaker. If we want the fund to be there for the next generation, we must face the realities in front of us. First, we must deal with the retirement age. Now, as you know, Mr. Speaker, there is no retirement age that is set in law. However, the commonly referred to retirement age is the age at which someone is eligible to receive social insurance benefits, which now currently stands at 65. As longevity across societies improve, systems put in place long ago must change with it. That means that just as with the PSSF, there'll be a need to gradually increase the age as which one receives social insurance benefits. Second, as I stated many times, we must modernize the way contributions are collected. For too long, the burden has been shared in a way that is not fair or just. The cashier should not be paying the exact same a month as the owner of a supermarket. Moving towards a percentage-based approach with a suitable cap is a more modern and progressive and fair approach. Mr. Speaker, the government intends to bring forward a position paper on the reforms in this session as we progress towards legislating the changes. It's important to note, Mr. Speaker, because we have an open budget process and we take into account the feedback that has come from the business sector around these changes. Businesses have asked for a pause on the implementation of changes. And while the government understands the pressure that businesses are facing, the longer we wait to fix the issue, the harder the issue will be to fix. So the government will be measured. We will consult. We will time implementation responsibly, but we must act. The goal is straightforward: a social insurance system that Bermudians can rely on, that is fair and will be there for the years to come. Mr. Speaker, before I conclude my presentation today, I must thank the persons who made the delivery of this long speech today a reality. Though I serve as Premier Minister of Finance, today I stand here as a representative of this government. And although I deliver the speech, there are so many other unsung heroes that have done the heavy lifting, whereas I just have to carry the budget suitcase. I wish to give my thanks to the ministers of this PLP government, some of whom I have served with nonstop for almost 9 years. I must recognize the honorable members of the government backbenches whose input helped form the policies put forward by this government today. I thank the hardworking public service executive, the heads of departments, and the ministry controllers whose work ensures that we complete the estimates of revenue expenditure in good time. I would also like to thank the public officers who deliver government services to the residents of Bermuda, and to those who deliver services to the ministers of the government. I especially remember at this time the late Gwen Johnson, who was well known to all in this chamber for her expertise, having drafted most of Bermuda's recent financial services legislation, and was here in this chamber, Mr. Speaker, the last time we were here and meeting. Her untimely passing leaves a void that is hard to fill, and as a reminder that no matter the role that we play, all of us in public service sacrifice for the greater good. Mr. Speaker, this speech would not be possible without the work of the Honorable Member for Hamilton West, the Honorable Wayne Livingston Ferbert. We have worked together on many a budget, even when he was not in finance. When I needed help, I would just call Wayne. Thank you, Honorable Member, for working with me and the team and for filling the void sometimes left in the Ministry of Finance so ably. Mr. Speaker, I would like to also thank the team of the Ministry of Finance, led by the Financial Secretary, Mr. Chito Fuegos, who's with us today, who support the work of the Minister of Finance in preparing the annual budget. I wish to extend a special thank you to the members of the Budget Office, led by the Budget Director, Ms. Tina Tucker, and the Communications team, who have to work late hours to make sure that the budget is printed and turned around on time. Mr. Speaker, when I first moved back to Bermuda in 2003 and started working with the government in 2004, I remember I was at this thing and there was a budget presentation. The people of TCD sent me down there. Ms. Tucker was there as the budget director. While the Ministry of Finance has seen many changes over the years, she has been a constant voice of calm under pressure, delivering for her minister and her country year in and year out. Mr. Speaker, I understand that Ms. Tucker's time of public service may be coming to an end. And given that in this case is the case, I ask for all of us in this honorable chamber to thank her for her service to Bermuda. Conclusion, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude this budget statement, the final one I will deliver as Premier Minister of Finance, I am struck by the scale of the journey we have shared over the last 9 years. Since 2017, it has been the honor of my life to serve the people of Bermuda and to lead a government that has remained steadfast in its commitment to a stronger and fairer country. Our journey has not been a straight line, nor has it been without its share of trials. When this government first took office, it set out with a clear plan to restore Bermuda's public finances. By 2019, through careful management and difficult choices, it had brought this country to the very cusp of a balanced budget, within reach of the milestone that had eluded Bermuda for a generation. And then, Mr. Speaker, the world changed. A global pandemic reached our shores and brought hardship and uncertainty that few could have imagined. In those dark hours, our priority was not the balance sheet, but the lives and livelihoods of our people. Like responsible governments everywhere, we took the decisions required to protect families, support workers, and keep Bermuda whole. This government did what was necessary, and we did not hesitate. Mr. Speaker, this budget rests on something that makes progress possible. One word: stability. Economic stability, fiscal discipline, and policy follow-through. Public finance is not improved by slogans. It is improved by sustained work over time. Over the past 9 years, whether it's myself at the helm of the Ministry of Finance or the honorable member for constituency number 21, this government has faced real tests: a pandemic, inherited guarantee obligations from the former government, and external shocks. We adjusted where we needed to do so, but we never lost sight of our mission. There were those who suggested that the pandemic would define our future. But as the late Dr. Martin Luther King reminded us, we must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. We did not lose hope. We worked. We developed and executed Bermuda's economic recovery plan, and today the evidence of that work is before this honorable House. We have moved from pandemic uncertainty to real fiscal strength. This government delivered an audited budget surplus of $29 million before a single dollar of corporate income tax was collected. We are now using that strength to deliver the largest tax cut for workers in Bermuda's history, with some workers paying 95% less payroll tax than they did when we took office in 2017. And today, as I've announced, this government will repay $605 million of debt in full, reducing gross debt by 18% and cutting our annual interest costs by 20%. Mr. Speaker, Bermuda is well positioned for the future. We know that there are challenges ahead, but we also know that we have built credibility, stability, and a clear strategy, not only in international business, but as a recognized leader in digital finance and the innovation that will define the next era. Responsible choices are not always dramatic or headline generating. Often they are measured, sometimes they are cautious, but over time they protect a country's finances and expand opportunity in a way that lasts. The decision of this budget to establish a sovereign wealth fund and a stability fund are decisions rooted in responsibility, acts of planting for a future that we may not personally inhabit, but one that our children surely will. This success, Mr. Speaker, belongs to the people of Bermuda. Those who have worked, those who have struggled, those who have persevered, and those who never lost belief in what this country could be. There is an old proverb, Mr. Speaker, that says, "A society grows great when its people plant trees in whose shade they shall never sit." Mr. Speaker, today this government is planting those seeds. As we look towards the horizon, let us do so with confidence in the foundations that have been laid. It has been a long road since 2017 to this moment, but we have reached it together. Mr. Speaker, last year our manifesto was entitled, "Building a Fairer, More Stable, and Affordable Bermuda." That was not simply a slogan. It was a commitment to our people, one that this budget delivers on today. Mr. Speaker, this budget strengthens our island home for the years ahead by protecting stability, expanding opportunity, and making Bermuda more affordable for working families. And it is my privilege, on behalf of this Progressive Labor Party government, to commend the estimates of revenue and expenditure to this honorable House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.